Mr. Kip Sorensen, good to have you back, man. Good to see you, brother.
Good to be back on the wagon of podcasting with Mr. Mickler on a weekly basis.
You've
You
had
know,
a you've had an eventful couple of weeks, so we all understand.
yeah, I appreciate it, and but it's actually, we talk about it, how nice it is, right, to have these conversations and just be having this kind of dialogue, whether it's guys listening or just you and I having the dialogue with one another. It's always beneficial. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's totally true.
It really is. There's a lot of guys out there who don't have anybody to talk to at all, or they have their wife, and their wife is good. It's not
Yeah.
complete. It's not going to fill everything that a guy needs, but yeah, guys don't have that conversation. But there's another lesson too, is that the system kept rolling, and I know you've been
Yeah.
out offline for a couple of weeks, but the system kept rolling. And to me, that's another lesson that was really valuable, is that we had Sean come in last week and he did a tremendous job. We only made fun of you a little bit, not very much, just
Yeah,
a little
I
bit.
trust me. I listened. I was like, at
Yeah, we
dicks.
figured.
Only cursed you a couple times.
But I've been really thinking about, and that, in fact, you and I talked about this before we even hit record, is making sure that the systems and processes are in place, so that when things go wrong, and they always will, there'll be challenges and medical conditions and family situations and layoffs and divorce and all kinds of stuff that could derail the system. But if you don't have these contingencies in plan, I even think about this with just political and societal upheaval. I did a post the other day about the food storage, the freezers that we have, and the food storage we have in place. We have a freeze dryer, so we're drying food now. My wife cans a bunch of food all the time. Like, these are contingencies that we put in place if and when, it's not even if, when things happen,
Yeah.
we have all the systems in place. So guys, you really ought to consider your backups with, yes, your food storage, but also your day-to-day operations. Like, how's your business going to run if somebody goes down? Like, if you have a key executive that goes down, whether they die or they have a family emergency or something, like what happens to the rest of your business? Does it implode? Or do you have something in place that you can just flip that switch, like a backup generator? You go flip the switch and the power turns back on. You guys are good to go with minimal downtime.
Yeah. What Echelon Front utilizes when they talk about discipline equals freedom, sometimes they'll reference discipline in the process, right? Like, by being disciplined in regards to the systems in which we're using, then we get the freedom of dealing with the unknown, dealing with things that will show up that we weren't planning. But if we're not disciplined in that, and we're barely getting by with our heads cut off, just trying to maintain things, and then problems show up, we're not going to be able to stay afloat. Right. And
100%.
I think it's even, you're talking about more complex and more serious items. I feel that way just about maintaining a clean home. Like, if I can't maintain a clean home, or let me say it this way, if I'm disciplined and maintaining and being organized, then when chaos happens, I'm not stressed out about those kind of things, right? And I can deal with the issue. But like, if I'm not disciplined in my process and being organized in regards to how I do things, and then chaos shows up, dude, your shit falls apart, right? Like, things aren't getting done and everything else. And so I think that principle even transcends even just minute, day-to-day schedules and those kind of things, let alone serious issues that you're alluding to.
Yeah, well, and there's also another element of this that I think a lot of men overlook when it comes to the discipline equals freedom mantra. Freedom to do what you want, sure, all that kind of stuff. Freedom to go on vacations and have the income and all this stuff. That's good. That's right. But there's also a mental clarity and freedom that comes from having your stuff in line. Like, I know what I do every single Friday is I go through my office and I clean my entire office. I vacuum it, we dust it. My daughter helps me. She earns a little money by helping me clean up the office. I take all my paperwork that, maybe stacked up from throughout the week. I file it, or I put it in a pile of things that need to be addressed early next week. Like, I do a fine cleaning every single Friday because I know I'm much more effective mentally. Yes, physically as well, but mentally, when there isn't a bunch of clutter and chaos and noise around me. I'll get into a friend's car, for example, and it's like a tornado went off in the car. I'm like, how are you functioning at maximum capacity right now if your car looks like this? How are you functioning at max capacity when your house is just a mess? Like there's no way. Oh, well, Ryan, I have a system. Yeah, you do. And it sucks. Your system sucks. It's less effective than it could be. So clean everything up. Make sure your environment is the way you want it to be. I just made some changes in my office. I actually have my Vara desk right here that the computer's sitting on now, which is one of those collapsible, expandable desks so you can stand up and down.
Like a stand-up desk. Yeah.
Yeah, it was over here on the other desk, but I put it here. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to change some lighting around. Like I want this environment to be, when I come in here, maximum efficiency, maximum effectiveness, no wasted space, no wasted papers or stuff lying around, maximum efficiency, because I have a very short window to get everything that I want to get accomplished. And if I have chaos and clutter, it's not going to be as effective as it could be.
And that stuff just snowballs. Like I don't have the time right now, so I'm going to push it off. And then later it's like, it's still not done. And it just gets worse until eventually, like, you have to like take an entire Saturday off to get your shit together. Right. So it's better to be disciplined in the moment and keep maintain it.
It's not even discipline. It's just simple thing. I think sometimes we put too much weight to, you have to be disciplined. Yeah, I guess. But like, is it really discipline, or is it just little changes that don't add any extra to your plate? So one of the things that I do when I'm in my truck, if my kids are in with me, and even when I'm alone, is every time I get out of the car, I clean the trash out of the truck. Like the door, has little pieces of trash or, a drink can or whatever. And every time I just grab it out and I throw it away. And when my kids are in the car, before we get out, I'm like, hey kids, grab your trash on the way out. And you know what we do? We have a trash can right in the barn. So on the way from the car to the house, there's a trash can. It's a huge, just drop it right in there. It's not even discipline. It's just a system. It's a little simple system that makes everything else much more effective.
I see what you're saying. Just to have clarity. So you're saying, hey, don't make this, it's not a big deal, right? And sometimes by putting the label of discipline on it, we think like, oh, this is this chore. When we're out, it's just
hard.
Like,
and I got to grind through it. Yeah. You don't have to grind through anything. Just James Clear talks about this quite a bit in his book, Atomic Habits. You make the things that you want to do easy, you grease the groove, and the things you don't want to do, you make hard. So if you want to have chips and salsa every night, like I do personally, then you don't have chips and salsa in the house.
You have to go to the
store. And then if you want it,
them.
You have to go to the store. And we're lazy. Like, I'm not going to go to the store at 9:00 at night because I'm lazy. And so that makes it harder. It's not discipline. That isn't discipline. It's just I'm lazy. And so I utilize my laziness not to eat the chips and salsa.
Yeah. And then the worst case is like, well, car's at no fuel, going for a salsa run. You see Mr. Old Man Mickler out running to the store for salsa.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, there we go. There's our rant for the morning.
You feel better? You feel better? You want to hug it out,
I got so much more in me, dude. You started it, man. When we got on this call, before we even hit record, you're telling me all these things and all. I'm like, ugh. So
I brought up spreadsheets and Ryan started getting angry.
That's right. All right. What do we got, man?
All right. So we're fielding questions. Yeah, we're fielding questions from the Iron Council. To learn more about the Iron Council, go to orderman.com/Iron Council. Our first question, Bobby, Katie, where do you see this movement going, Mr. Mickler? Is there a number you have in your head of the members you want to have within the Iron Council?
I saw this question
every so often. Yeah,
we do. And I appreciate the question. People are interested in where we're going and what we're doing. I actually don't have an end goal. I think about it in the context of a marathon or some sort of race. Everybody has an end goal. And so they run and they pace themselves and they do whatever they're going to do based on what their end objective is. And then they work backwards. Okay, I got to run 26 miles and I'm trying to hit, 8-minute miles. And in order to do that, here's where I have to be at the quarter mark and the halfway mark. I don't have a goal. Like, I don't have a final destination. I don't have somewhere I want to go. I don't have something I want to create at the end. There's no benchmark I've thought about that I've reached the epitome of what I'm going to create and the pinnacle of our achievement here. And I actually like it like that.
Yeah.
Because it just leaves me open to being flexible and to maneuvering. And I really enjoy what I'm doing. So when you ask me what is the end result, it almost feels like, what am I working towards? I'm not working towards something. I'm working for the sake of working. I actually really like doing this. I wake
You're
up
just
charged every
trading.
day. That's
Yeah.
it. I'm excited about it. Like, who am I? Who do I get to talk to today? What questions do I get to answer? How do I get to serve the people that are here? What new projects or what new technology can I implement? How can I improve? How can I get better? How can I be more effective? And it isn't towards some desired end goal. It's just, I like to get better. I like to make this better. I want this thing to improve. So that might be a little counter to what a lot of people hear when they think of goal setting. But here's another example that clearly you can relate with. You know, everybody wants to achieve and get their black belt in jiu-jitsu, whether you started a week ago or you started 10 years ago, you want your black belt. But at some point along the way, you're like, the black belt's going to come. I actually just enjoy going to class.
Yeah.
And there isn't some final, the destination will take place, but you're not like actively focused on that. You just are present and you enjoy being there. And that's the point I'm at now with Order of Man.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I wonder if it saves you from getting like blinded with a certain set of expectation, right? Where you're like, oh, okay, here's the next step and I'm going to lock this in and we're going to go here. And it almost, I wonder if sometimes if you did that, you would prevent yourself from seeing new opportunities because you've locked in on how it should go. And it prevents you from being nimble and flexible enough to take advantage of opportunities that will just naturally present themselves outside of your planning.
Yeah. Or I agree with that. Or also burnout.
Yeah.
Because you're so focused on this thing and whether it happens or not, and all the external circumstances that are well beyond your control play out. And then you just end up gassing yourself out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I will say this, there are things in the micro that sound appealing to me. Like I might have a new event. I'm like, oh, that event would be cool. And then I have a goal like, okay, in order to have that event this fall,
but
like
a shorter window, right?
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is creating somewhat of a media. I'm always hesitant to say this because I had a call last week and people hold me to what I say on this podcast. But guys, just know that if I say something, it doesn't mean I'm going to actively pursue it. I'm just kind of thinking out loud.
Sharing the thought. Yeah.
That's all I'm doing. So don't take it to heart or do or whatever, but don't hold me to it. I've kind of thought like this, what we're doing here with Order of Man, making it or not pivoting, but adding a sort of media component to it. So a couple of great companies that do this, the Daily Wire does this really good with Ben Shapiro and Jeremy Boring. They're creating a media empire. Now they're getting into film, like full feature films.
Yeah, movies. Yeah.
Movies. Another company that does this really good, John Lovell with Warrior Poet Society, does a phenomenal job. Even Origin, to a degree, not totally, but to a degree, they're great at marketing their stuff and
they'll create those videos and the story. Yeah.
So I've been talking with a couple of video guys lately about, hey, how can we bring you in on a more full-time basis to have you not only document what it is I'm doing and what we're doing here, but then highlighting and featuring other people. Josh Smith is somebody who comes to mind. He's the founder of Montana Knife Company. I'm going out there in April to do a podcast with him, and we're going to be forging some knives. But it would actually be really cool to do, maybe it's a 10-minute or a 15-minute documentary on his story about where he started and how he became one of the youngest bladesmiths in the world at such a young age. And then he went out and he became a lineman because that wasn't paying the bills, but he was sick of that. And so he transferred and now he's doing very, very well with Montana Knife Company. That's a cool story. And I think it warrants more attention than just an hour-long podcast. I think men would actually be very interested in this. So maybe that could even turn into something that would be a 12-part series that you'd see on one of these mainstream outlets of, here's 12 stories of men who started from humble beginnings and they had their fair shares of ups and downs, and we shared all of them. And then here's where they are now. I think a lot of guys would be interested and inspired by that. So I think there's some media opportunities that we've, I don't want to say missed, but that we've been exploring lately that I think would add to what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and if there's one thing that has been really present on my mind of late is just and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the power of just being present, right? Like it's funny is so much, it's like, just relating it back to Bobby's question, there's danger in you going, oh, why, this is where I want the movement to go. And this is the ultimate, goal. And sometimes when we do that, we lose the presence of the now and the opportunities of the now sitting right in front of our lap. And probably sometimes all that we need to do is not worry about where it's going and what does ultimate success it looks like, but just being fully engaged in the moment and actually doing great with what we have been given. Now, don't get me wrong, because someone's going to hear that and go, oh, so Kip says, don't have goals and don't try to. That's not what I'm saying. I think so much opportunities are available to us in this very moment. And we're so busy looking at the way it should be that we let things pass us up. And sometimes it's just take advantage of what we have. But
this same topic is at the root of one of the most commonly asked questions we get, which is, hey, I'm not happy with where I am. I'm thinking about starting a business over here. Should I? Well, I don't know. Like, have you maximized where you currently are? I think about that with a podcast. And I've talked about this in the past. Do I go start a third podcast or do I make this one even better?
Yeah.
Right. Making this one better, from video to production, to audio production, to the conversations, to the quality of guests that we're having on, that's infinitely more valuable than just going and starting some other mediocre third podcast that I could potentially do.
Yeah, totally. Or start that new marriage, that new relationship, or actually just make the one I have work. Yeah.
Right.
And make it amazing the way it is.
Right. And guys will hear that and be like, well, not everything works out. Yes, we know, but I think you owe it to yourself to actually go all in on something before you go half in. It's like Ron Swanson says, never half-ass two things, whole ass one thing, right? That's what we're talking about.
Totally. Yeah. Well, right. and we even in our world, we have consultants that are like, oh, this other consulting firm, like I'll share an example where we had one of our team members is like, hey, I got this great offer from this other firm and this is what's required of me. And the question is like, well, are you doing that now? Oh, you're not even doing that now, right? Like, so what's going to change? Why don't you actually just do that right now and reap the benefits of where you're at versus like, oh, well, if I move over here, then I'll rise up. It's a classic scenario. Everyone thinks that circumstances determine action, right? Oh, well, if I get that new car, then I'll take care of my car, right? If I built a new house, then no, you don't. If you're not taking care of what you have now, if you don't respect what you have now, it's not going to be any different, whether it's a new wife, a new car, a new job, or anything else.
No, of course not. I mean, it'll be more exciting for a little while.
Yeah.
But then you'll fall back into the same pattern, and then you'll have to go get the next thing to have your dopamine rush. Well, what if you just found your dopamine rush and making your current circumstances better?
Yeah. Amen. All right. Kevin Bovey, best ways to overcome years of mental and emotional gaslighting, never being good enough. How to heal from that trauma?
I think I asked a follow-up question on this one. Is that showing up? Oh, did you save them? Is that what you did?
Yeah, I saved them. I'll go grab it.
Because I asked initial thoughts. I think I asked from who are you being gaslighted? Because if
it depends. Yeah,
it really does. Because if it's somebody, outside of your immediate circle, there might not be a reason that you need. This is kind of akin to the how do you deal with question. If anybody asks, how do you deal with? The answer is usually you don't. Like, how do you deal with this thing? You don't. If that's the kind of question you're asking. But now look, if it's your wife or your boss or somebody very close to you, okay, that's a different situation. Do you have it pulled up there?
Kevin's saying from anyone, but in my case, my soon-to-be ex-wife.
Yeah. So I think, look, I don't know your situation, but it sounds like you're dealing with it. My soon-to-be ex-wife. If you have somebody who's abusing you, and I think gaslighting is psychological abuse. It is.
You want to give definition to gaslighting really quick?
So gaslighting. So the term if I understand correctly, the term comes from a movie, and maybe the movie was Gaslight. I don't know. It comes from a movie where, if I remember correctly, a husband or a wife kept turning down the gas lights in the house and making their partner believe they were going crazy. They were doing that and other things. And that's what gaslighting is you're saying things to make another person believe like they're the ones that crazy.
They're wrong, even though know they're right and whatever.
That they're not even wrong, that they're like, you and I can disagree. If I say, no, Kip, you're wrong, that's not gaslighting.
Yeah.
But
when you know you're wrong,
the language,
and you're purposely making me think I'm wrong. Yeah.
And I manipulate, look, we've all done that, like my wife will come. I'm actually pretty good at it. So my wife will come to me and she'll say, Brian, you've been doing this thing wrong, or you've been messing up on this. And I have a very good ability of like, well, I did it because of this. And I turn it back on her. And that's gaslighting. Okay. The problem is not her, but we turn it around on that person to make them feel like they're the ones that mess up. And that's psychological abuse. So you're handling it, soon to be ex-wife. If that's really the case, and that's really what's going on. And I said it before I even knew that you said it was your ex-wife. The answer is you don't deal with it, because there are people that are like that. They're insane, man. And they try to make you feel like you are. And it's just destructive and toxic and just consumes your time and makes you feel like garbage. And the answer is to get yourself out of that environment and simultaneously get yourself in an environment where that isn't taking place. So surrounding yourself, you remember the Iron Council, this is a great step. Surrounding yourself with good people, with wholesome people, people who actually care about you, those who want to see you thrive and succeed and win, people who are willing to sacrifice on their part in order to help you win, even if that means a quick phone call or sharing some insight or taking time out of their day to serve or support you in some way. So just like anything, if you had cancer, like you're not just going to leave it there and like, oh, how does my body deal with it? No, you aggressively cut it out of your life. And you even attempt to kill other parts of your body through radiation and chemo.
To try to get rid of it. Yeah.
To get rid of it. Like you're so aggressive. And in the meantime, what else are you doing? You're eating healthy. You're dieting. You're getting the nutrients you need. You're reading good books. You're getting exposure to sunlight. You're cutting it out and also exposing yourself to the good so that you can have both come at it from two different angles.
Ryan, one concern that I have if I think through like the label of gaslighting is that some people might like, and I'm not saying this is the case for this particular individual, right? But there was a lot of opportunity during my divorce where I could easily throw in a label on she's gaslighting me, right? Because I have all these reasons of why I acted that way, and she's trying to make me wrong when in reality, and really what I'm doing is just latching on being a victim and not really owning my lack of showing up correctly as a husband. So, I mean, any thoughts on like, hey, being careful here around, don't be too quick just to assume people are gaslighting, and look for opportunities to own your shit too, and make sure that, you maintain your own integrity.
Well, we live in a world of false dichotomies. So everybody thinks it's either A or B. They won't even consider that maybe it's A plus B or A and B.
Yeah. Like she's gaslighting me. And you know what? Yeah, she's probably right in half those statements. I was a complete dick as a husband or whatever.
Or maybe she's not, but maybe there's some area of improvement that's completely unrelated to this quote unquote gaslighting that you could focus on. And there's a great quote is, I'm going to paraphrase here, but never attribute to malice what could be explained as stupidity or something along those lines. Some people, like I genuinely believe, even with the amount of people, negative people that I deal with on social media, that the overwhelming majority of those people do not have malice in their heart. Some, yes, but the overwhelming majority of people who I would consider negative or toxic or haters are probably just either A, dumb, or they suck at delivery.
Yeah.
And so we're so quick to jump to malice, like, oh, this person, they're out. Well, hold on. Maybe they're just ignorant. Or maybe they just really suck at delivery because they never learned how to deliver a message correctly. So I think we can afford people some grace. And even in an ex-wife scenario, it's like, okay, let's say that's true. Let's say you're right. Let's say she is gaslighting. Okay. Like what, like you could either look at that and be negative and hostile and have a bunch of vitriol in your heart. Is that going to change that situation? Yeah. No. Or you can just say, you know, my wife had some issues dealing as she was a child, and her father or mother did the same thing to her. And then that translates. Now that doesn't give it an excuse.
Yeah. But it gives you
some empathy. But it might be a reason.
An intellectual understanding of human nature is just beneficial.
Exactly. Yeah. And then in the meantime, you know, like you said, focus on yourself. So maybe it's not exclusively A, or maybe it's not exclusively B. Maybe there's some element of truth to both. Matt Fraser, when he was on the podcast, 5-time fittest man on earth with CrossFit, he said that. He says, you know, I look at people who critique what I do, and he had plenty. You know, maybe they critiqued his deadlift and they were being, you know, jerks about it. And he said, but even if they were being jerks, I still looked at it. Maybe there's actually something to it. Should I evaluate it? And he was, as best he could, attempted to be objective in the critique or analysis to try to improve. And you can do the same thing here.
Yeah. Danny Wren, what tips do you have for building stability back into your life when a lot has changed recently and there are many competing priorities? So far, I've found setting up a solid morning routine has had the most significant impact on where the rest of my day goes. I try to get 3/4 of my battle plan, all non-negotiable, addressed before the sun rises. But some days it feels like I'm just checking the block.
Well, and some days it is going to be that, you know, some days it's like, I don't feel like this.
I'm not feeling like it, but I'm just going to go anyway.
So what? Yeah. Do it anyways. You know, we have to go through the motions sometimes, and that's okay. I think you're doing exactly right. Bringing stability back into your life is a process of building systems. And we talked about that earlier. And that's what you're doing now. You have a new system and plan in place where you're doing the morning routine and you're getting your objectives done, at least 75% of them done before, you know, early in the morning. There's one other thing I would suggest to you. Maybe you're already doing this, but couple that morning plan with your evening session, your evening wind down. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your battle plan out. And I got mine right here. It's always within arm's reach of me. And I did my planning this morning and tonight before I close my eyes.
Always within arm's reach. Like if you go to the bathroom, bring that with you, or?
Well, it's on my phone. I have all that stuff on my phone. Just this one might not be.
Always. That's.
I've got it on my phone too, man. And that phone, that's closer to
me.
No,
the phone always comes to the bathroom. That's why, honey, I'm 30 minutes later. I got to go to the bathroom.
Of course. I write these things down. I have notes on my daily tabs and my notebook on my phone. So yeah, it's like my planning is always within arm's reach.
Okay.
So back to it before I was so rudely interrupted.
Evening routine.
Questioning me. Yeah, no, evening routine. If you couple your morning routine with an evening routine, man, you're going to be powerful. So what you do is you go through and all right, here's what I did. Here's what I didn't do. Here's what I need to do tomorrow. Here's what's changed throughout the day that maybe makes that something that either doesn't need to be done, or we already addressed it by, addressing something else. Like things change throughout the day. And if you couple a morning routine with an evening routine and you do that day in and day out, man, you're going to be unstoppable. And then also the other unintended benefit of this is you're going to be more able to adjust with things that happen in your life. Because there's a lot of
we were talking about earlier.
Right. There's a lot of unforeseens. And if you're so rigid in your planning, because you're like, I plan once a month and then I look at it at the end of the month. It's like, well, bro, a lot can happen in 30 days. But if you take out your planner and you look at all the things you need to get done, and then something comes up, you're like, oh, okay. Before this becomes a problem, I'm going to cancel that meeting. I'm going to shift this here. I'm going to change that there. I'm going to tweak and adjust this. And I'm going to add this right here. Good to go. No issue whatsoever. So morning, evening routine, execute, adjust as necessary.
Excellent. Jenkins, he actually had a similar question. So I'm just jumping down to anything you would add here based upon his question. What are each of your morning and evening routines and how they have helped you achieving success?
My morning routine is getting up and exercising. It usually it's jujitsu 3 days a week in the morning. Outside of that, it might be a bike ride or a walk or throwing the weights around, but it's getting up, it's doing that. And then, I get ready, spend time with the family. We have slacked admittedly on our family meeting. So I talked to my wife last night about that. We're actually going to be implementing that family meeting every morning again, because we've been slacking on that one as we both got busy and life just has come at us. We've not done that, unfortunately. And then, from there, it's just getting ready. And then I come do my battle planning. It takes me about, 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops, if that. And then I work hard.
Yeah.
Until it's time to close out the day.
Yeah. The one thing that has been what's in my battle plan this quarter is no social media when I get home. From work. And so the whole premise is just to be present with my kids, right? And not to be distracted, right? Back to kind of what we're talking about earlier, just been really present on my mind about the importance of presence. And so I've done that before in the past. It was huge success. It really helped. It does make me more frustrated with other people when they're on their phone. Really easy to judge
when you
people
see them on the phone.
Yeah, totally. But but that would be on. And Matt knows this, like, I have non-negotiable every morning to work out. So, and when I miss that and I try to squeeze it in later in the day, it's never a really good idea. So,
I don't know how people work out in the, there's a lot of people who do. I'm not going to work out. I know, unless it's jujitsu, I know I'm not going to go train anything else at night. I'm done. I'm tired. I don't want to go. I hate lifting weights.
It's harder.
It's not a fun thing for me.
Yeah.
So it really is. Now I think he asked about evening routine.
Yeah.
It's the same, really. I'm going to spend time with the family. We're going to play around. We always eat dinner. Not always, kid, because I know you're going to ask, but
you always
always eat dinner. But 80% of the evenings we're eating dinner together. Yeah. And that's important. We ask about each other's day. We joke and laugh and play and have fun. Tease each other a little bit. It's like we have a good time at dinner. And then after that, it's usually playing games. We might play some board games or Uno or something, or we might watch like America's Funniest Videos. We do that. And then, put the kids down. My wife and I spend some time together. I've already gone through my plan. I go through my battle planner before I close it down for the day, so that when I'm home, I'm fully home and present. And that's pretty much our evening plan.
Copy. Michael Cole, discussing God and your faith with teenage kids without sounding preachy and turning them off might be a great man in the making episode as well. I'd love to hear Brecken's take on this. More specifically, how do you discuss how faith and the service to God can and should play a daily role in the lives of our teens? I struggle with my 17-year-old daughter with this one.
Yeah, I think, the first thing is example, but that's kind of the kindergarten answer, right? You got to set the example, be the example. We all know that.
Anything you say is not going to work if you're not the example first.
Right. So be the example and then look for teaching moments. I'm spiritual and somewhat religious, but I have a hard time with religious, like overly religious people. It's hard for me because I don't know why, actually, why it is, but when I hear it, it turns me off. I'm like, oh, like your answer is like, that's your answer for everything. I don't know. It just seems like it lacks depth or thought process. And maybe that's not fair. Again, I'm just thinking out loud here. Maybe they really have put a lot of thought and effort into it.
Yeah.
But if your answer is always, well, you should pray about it. I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I got it. You should pray. Like, give me some, like, what else do you have? And so I can feel, you say your daughter, I can feel her frustration when everything's like, well, have you asked God yet? Have you prayed about it yet? Have you? It's like, yeah. And what else? Like, what else should I be doing? And I've talked about this too, is even though I'm a spiritual man, I'm faithful. I think we put too much responsibility on his shoulders. I think that's our deep, I think religious and spiritual people, and they're different, right? Religious and
Yeah.
spiritual, or they could be the same. You could be spiritual and religious. I think they put too much weight on God's shoulders. He can handle it, no doubt. But like, what about you? Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know,
Or
and that's,
God. Yeah. I mean, we've
that's what
talked
I
about this,
struggle
right?
with is
Like
people like, if it's God's will, he'll do it. Well, God's will is for you to be fulfilled. That we already know that. Like, there's no guesswork in that. He wants that for you, just like you want that for your kids. Like, it would never be a question. I don't want what's in the best interest of my children. The question is, how do we make it so? And so everybody's like, well, if it's in God's will, and you're almost like painting it as if God is up there, you know, waving his magic wand and making all of your wildest dreams come true. And all the while he's sitting up there, man, I really wonder when Ryan's going to take all those blessings I've given to him and really put those into practice. So now you're just sitting around waiting on each other. Like,
yeah.
So I guess again, I'm thinking out loud here because I do grow tired of the religious fervor at times. But what I would say is live the life that you best know how, and then try to explain things both spiritually and temporally. So you can explain a phenomenon about life in a spiritual perspective, but there's also a temporal answer to that too. You know, like, why would you want to live the 10 commandments? So you can return to live with God, have eternal life. Yeah, valid. And also, you're going to live a more fulfilled life. You're going to be happier. You're going to be more successful. You're going to be a joy to be around. People are going to want to spend time with you. You're going to find meaning and purpose and satisfaction in your life. You're probably going to work harder. You're going to have a more meaningful career. Those are all temporal pursuits. And, you know, some people, that's going to appeal more than the religious or the spiritual side of things.
Yeah. Well, and we know how people learn, right? It's like you've used the analogy of, you know, kid needs to take out the trash and he can't reach the garbage can, or there's something in the way. You don't just swoop in and like, oh, let me address this for you. It's like, oh, great learning opportunity. What are you going to do? How are you going to push through? Right? That's how we learn. And if we're just sitting back and like letting God act on us, it's not how we work. I mean, it's not how we learn. Right. And I don't think that relationship with God's any different. I think he expects you to bust your ass and figure it out. Now, I'm not saying you don't give credit where credit's due. But in the same breath, I think God intended us to figure out a whole lot more than what some people believe he has given us the freedom and the agency to figure out.
Well, and it has to be because if God's given you everything and there's like a predetermined path that you are incapable of deviating from, then your experience here means nothing. Yeah. It means absolutely nothing. But if you make those choices, those good, positive, wholesome choices that are going to serve you and other people well, and you make those choices of your own will, that is what means something. Like, you can't be courageous if, you know, you're forced to do something, like forced to do some courageous act, right? People say, oh, that's courageous. It's like, well, no, I was kind of like forced to do it. I had to get out of that situation or whatever, right? Like, courage comes from having fear and there being risk, but you doing it anyways. And then you doing it in spite of it. And it's the same thing with our spiritual path. If you're coerced or manipulated or forced into that path, it isn't virtuous. Like, you were forced to do it. What's virtuous is knowing that there's risk and there's challenge and there's temptation, but you still made a good decision in the face of all. That's virtue. So to go back to his question, what about to a daughter? Live the example, talk about the benefits from both the spiritual and temporal perspective, and then look for those opportunities for teaching moments so that you're not doing a sermon from the pulpit. It's like, you know,
it's just integrated in life. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say you get into a car accident and you and your daughter walked away unscathed. Man, that's a great opportunity to say, here's how I look at that. I see it from both the spiritual and like the temporal perspective is like, okay, well, God protected us in the moment. He wanted to keep us safe. And also God made some really smart engineers who diligently worked hard, who designed the roads, who built the cars in order that when we rolled over 3 or 4 times, the car maintained its integrity and we were able to walk away from that crash. And so I'm grateful that God protected us in the moment. And I'm also grateful that he made some really smart people with some talents that utilize those talents to save people's lives. Like, I'm grateful for that. Like that's the pragmatic approach and the spiritual approach. And then you talk about it in the moment and you bring those things up.
Yeah. Alan Placer, would love to hear hear you discuss your IG post getting pulled and what men need to do to help change the narrative individually. The post that he's talking about is the return to masculinity.
Yeah. So, actually, I think the post that he was talking about was I said something about men being male and women being female.
Yeah.
And Instagram took it down. And so I just posted it again. I'm like, no, I'm post this again. And then Instagram took it down again. and so I sent a review and I was like, okay, like I want you to explain to me why this goes against your rules and why this is harmful, is what they said, or harassment or harmful, whatever the verbiage was.
Yeah.
And so they reviewed it and they came back. They're like, oh, we actually put your post back up because it didn't go against our guidelines, which leads me to believe that it wasn't Instagram that automatically took it down. It was not even someone. It was a group of people who probably complained about the post and were upset about it and reported it as harmful or harassment. And Instagram said, well, enough people have complained about this. It must be. And so they just deleted it and waited for me to review it. Okay. Like that's a problem. Not only is what I said unequivocally true, that a man is first a male and a woman is first a female. Like even if you don't believe that, which is insane, like certifiably insane. Even if you don't believe that, the fact that you report it as harmful or harassment or bullying, like you're doing by reporting it, falsely reporting something as that, you're doing the exact same thing that you're complaining about. And I don't understand why somebody would be on my page.
Following you.
I've been talking about this for 7 years. There's no reason you should even be following me at this point. So I think that's what post he was referring to. And I had made that post in the Iron Council and said, I'm frustrated because like we need to return to masculinity. We need to be harnessing masculinity. And that's actually what I'm covering in my book that's coming out in the fall. Is I'm talking about how masculinity can be harnessed and utilized for productive outcomes. We shouldn't be mocking it, undermining it, dismissing it, demonizing, villainizing. We should be embracing it and then teaching our sons how to harness it and teaching our daughters how to acknowledge and recognize and appreciate it. And so what was Alan's question? How do you change the narrative?
Yeah, like how, would love what men need to do to help change the narrative individually. What men?
Well, the first thing, this goes to the example thing. The first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we are indeed harnessing masculinity for productive outcomes.
Yeah.
Because if you're using masculinity to hurt people or to prop yourself up at the expense of others, that's an issue. And of course, for example, a woman who's been physically or sexually abused by a man is naturally going to be skeptical around men. Like, why would she not be? Yeah. Of course she's going to be that way. So what we need to do is ensure that we are living our lives correctly, that we're using aggression and dominance and stoicism and competitiveness and self-respect and the ability to tell the truth and take risk and be courageous, that we're using those for productive ways for ourselves and for other people. Because if we're not, they're always going to be skeptical about it. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need to share. We need to get around other masculine men. We need to be doing and engaged in masculine behavior. We need to invite them to be engaged in masculine behavior. And we also need to reject the repulsive gender ideology that we're seeing in modern culture. Collectively, we need to reject that. We need to be vocal about it and reject it. You know, I saw a story the other day. In fact, I made this post on Instagram too, that there is a camp, a science camp in California. And after the fact, the parents found out that the camp allowed what they called, what did they call them? Non-binary something. Yeah. It was worse than that. It was like I got to pull it up because it was like, what? Hold on.
Now you guys all understand why Ryan's so angry.
You got to see it. Oh, here it is. Non-binary biological male counselors allowed to sleep in 5th grade girls' cabins at science camp. And I said, here, let me fix the title of that. And I wrote, what did I write?
Gender confused males hang out with 5th grader girls.
It's not even that. It's worse, bro. It's worse than that. So here's what I wrote. Men, like, you don't need to say non-binary, cisgender, confused. Like, no, men allowed to sleep in the same room as your daughters at camp. That's what's happening. Months ago, there was a young girl who was raped in a school bathroom by a boy who was pretending to be a girl because he was allowed to be in that bathroom because of this woke ideology. It's dangerous. Maybe even to a lesser degree, women's sports within the next 5 years will be decimated.
Destroyed. Yeah.
Absolutely destroyed. You ladies, and look with this college swimmer or whatever, Leah, I don't even know, Leanne Thompson or whatever it is. You know, he just won or broke some state pool records or something, whatever. And the women in the Ivy League schools are complaining about it, but they're doing it anonymously. Okay, that's the problem. Wake up. Like, be vocal. Don't hide behind a fake name. Put your name on it. Oh, well, Ryan, there's a risk. Yeah, right. There's a risk. And if you don't do it, then you're going to lose. You're going to lose. And so to come back to Alan's question, what do we need to do to change the narrative? Ensure that we're harnessing masculinity for productive outcomes and that we're being vocal about the need and the importance for masculinity. And then we're backing up those words with our own deeds and action.
Yeah. And I would even suggest, Ryan, let me know if you agree, is probably even get out into groups that you may not necessarily be in. I'm just thinking, like, how great would it be if more masculine men were part of PTA or as coaching girls basketball teams, were part of these community social groups that they need, like, those groups need your presence. They need to see what masculinity looks like, not just in your home. Don't get me wrong. That's the priority and that's what's most important, but it's these other areas that needs to be more visible than it is today.
Right. I think one of the greatest things that's lacking in society is masculine courage. It is. You know, when people say, well, I'm courageous for doing this, or well, you're courageous for what? Saying what everybody else is saying, parroting what everybody else. You think that's courageous?
Oh, I see. Having courageous around standing for masculinity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And standing up against some of the things that we see in society. Oh, well, Ryan, you know, I just want to be left alone. So do I. I just want to be left alone.
But that's
I shouldn't have a job. I shouldn't have a job. Okay. Order of men should not be a thing that's needed in society. Like, it should not, but it is. And I'm grateful that I'm in a position that I can help spearhead this movement, but it shouldn't be a movement. It should just be so common sense and so widely practiced that if anybody said, I'm going to start a men's movement, everybody would laugh because it's just not needed. And all you guys are sitting around and you're reaping the benefits of what we're doing, but you're not actually being vocal. You're not sharing. You're not getting involved, like you said, in PTA or sports or community service. You're not stepping up. You're not writing books. You're not writing blogs. You're not sharing on social media. And when somebody else says something great, sure, you'll leave them a little like on their comments, or you'll leave a review, but you're not doing anything. How are you supporting what we're doing here? By liking my Instagram post? I don't want you to do that. I want you to go run for city council. I want you to go sit on your school board. I want you to coach your son's baseball team. That's what I want you to do. And when enough of us do that, and then we band together, because we are going to be more courageous when we're banded together, then things will change. And if we keep being silent and saying, I just want to be left alone, or wait till the silent majority wakes up, or all this other nonsense that we like to say, then we can expect much of the same. And Alan brought up a good point. You know, he did say something, and I've really pondered and thought about this. He said, you know, Ryan, and and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, you know, something to the effect of, if you change, you know, the way that you say it, then people will be more receptive. Again, I'm paraphrasing. And I thought it was an interesting point. I still disagree with it, because it doesn't matter how I say things. There's always going to be somebody who's upset about it.
Like, meaning you won't ever, if you're trying not to make someone upset, then you're never going to say anything.
Right. And I think what he was saying is, hey, maybe offer that hand and see if you can bridge the gap. And I can appreciate that thought. It just doesn't work. Like, I've been in, well, with this podcast for 7 years, you know, there's people who just hate what I do. They just hate it. They despise it. They despise me for no good reason. Outside of that, I've been to war. Man, there's evil. There's people who want to see you die in the most horrific, horrible ways. Like, no words can smooth that over. You know what smooths that over? Bold, courageous, capable men who have the capability of putting that shit to an end. And so I told Alan, I said, hey, look, you know, like, I said that there's no amount of words there's no right words that can change this. But what I intend to do is to use my words to rally enough of us together who believe in this, where we start to affect change, because we can't be ignored. So words are powerful, and words can mend. Sure. But if people aren't interested in mending, then I'm going to rally people around my words so that we can actually do something about it. Because what we're seeing now is dangerous. You know who it's dangerous to? Women.
I know.
It's dangerous to the very people who that ideology says they're trying to protect. That's who it's dangerous to. And we as men have an obligation to protect our women. And I'm going to keep fighting for it.
There's your call to action. We should have saved that question for the last. That was a good way to wrap up, but more questions. Bobby, right. Jova Novick. Best ways of dealing with a toxic co-parent when their behavior starts to affect the child. How do you best support the child without slamming the other parent?
Woo. We answered it. Look, I told you. I didn't know this question came up. How did the question start? What was the first 5 words?
Best ways of dealing with a toxic co-parent.
How do you deal with? I talked about it 20 minutes ago. Yeah. How do you deal? The answer is you don't. You don't. Okay. So here's the formula. Establish boundaries. Hey, the way you're behaving, I don't appreciate the way these people are behaving. I don't appreciate what they're doing around my children or whatever, this and that. Okay. This is a co-parent, he said. Yeah. So I'm assuming ex-wife, right? Or mother of his children. Okay. Establish boundaries, communicate those boundaries. Hey, here's the way that we're going to communicate. Here's the way that we're going to work. Here's the way that we're going to do this. And then uphold the boundaries legally if you have to in this situation, because you have to protect the rights of your children as well. Hey, you were doing this. I will not tolerate that. We agreed upon these rules and you're not doing it. And there's consequences to not doing that. Now, you can have that conversation with your ex-wife or the mother of your children without throwing her under the bus to your kids. You can absolutely do that. Yeah. Because those are two distinct and separate things. And when you're talking with your kids, you just explain life and you be an example and you show up, because here's what's going to happen. I don't know how old your kids are, but let's say they're fairly young now. They may not fully understand, but I can assure you that over time, if they see you as the parent who's engaged and loving and offers discipline an empathetic and compassionate way, who helps them grow, like they're going to see that. And then they're going to have some confusion about why mom's words and behaviors aren't in alignment with yours. Who do you think that they're going to see through all of that? They're going to see you. And so one other thing you need to be careful of is undermining your ability to influence them. This is what a lot of bitter men will do. They're so bitter and contentious, and the hostility and vitriol they have towards their spouse or their ex is so bad that they end up doing or saying something dumb that undermines their ability to be influential with their kids. So you need to be cordial. You need to be respectful. You can have those hardline stances and you can communicate those, but you can do it in a tactful way so that you can still maintain influence with your kids. And in the meantime, you work with the family court system, and you also, if you have the means, you get behind organizations that are working to reform the family court system. Greg Ellis wrote a book called The Respondent, and he's got a great organization. He's got a great nonprofit that's working on helping reform the family court system. I did 2 podcasts with him. Go back and listen because they're really, really good. His book's good and his organization's even better.
Very cool. It's related to the question, but I would like to riff on it because I think it's so critical, because some guys may hear this and it's like, well, right. My spouse isn't toxic, right? We lack alignment a little bit and whatever. And this past week, for whatever reason, this has been really on my mind. And it's ironic how often when mom and dad are not in alignment, you will naturally, and I would argue this, you will naturally get one parent almost generating this ultimatums between the children and them, if that makes sense. So when mom and dad are not aligned, then one of those spouses will eventually be like, is it the kids or is it me? And you will create not just inconsistency messages to your children, but it creates a divide in your marriage as well. Because when you're not aligned, it's like, well, is it the kids or is it me? Right? Like, is there a priority here? And that could be very, very dangerous. And so I would like to suggest that even if it's not a quote unquote toxic spouse or co-parent or whatever, that alignment is super critical for the health of your relationship.
I agree. And the best way to get aligned is to talk.
Yeah. That stupid communication.
Sorry,
thing.
Guys.
So
you got to talk to people. You got to talk to your wife. If you feel yourself getting out of alignment, like I told you earlier, we're getting back on the family thing. Like just talk, not talk about dumb, trivial things, like talk about real issues. Hey, how do you think it's going with the kids? Where are we falling short? Where can we improve? Hey, I feel like over the past couple of months, we've grown distant from each other. Can we do something about that? Maybe we should go on a date. Maybe we should get on a little getaway. Am I not appreciating and respecting you the way you'd like to? And also, I'm not feeling like I get the respect that I deserve from you. And here's what I would like to see. Talk about these things so you can align yourselves.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's take maybe one more.
Okay. Evan Berwick, I want to unify my various side hustles and goals under one banner. What are some tips and tricks for branding different products and services under one new idea and direction? Now, you asked him a question about specifically around his scenario. His response to you was freelance graphic design and apparel company focused on giving back to the working dogs. I am shifting to focus on real freedom, anti-tyrant, and a community of extremely loyal Americans.
Yeah, I think those are perfectly in line. Graphic design and a t-shirt apparel company. And it sounds like you give a percentage of your profits, maybe back to this nonprofit that either you're connected with or that you've started is what I'm gathering. Yeah. Is that what you gather?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think they're in a great alignment. I would be careful.
Why do side hustles have to be aligned under one banner?
I don't think they do, but
okay.
I think it might create some more efficiency depending on what the side hustles are.
Makes it a little easier. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with the graphic design, the t-shirt apparel, and the nonprofit attached to it, I think you can create something that will allow you to grow your business, but then in return, contribute more to the nonprofit. But the nonprofit should be an ancillary of your business itself, because you're talking about working dogs, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
And if you make it centered all around that, then you're cutting yourself off to potential graphic design opportunities that aren't related to the veteran community or LEO community or working dog community. And so you're selling yourself short on that. So what I would do is I would create a graphic design company and do your t-shirts. That makes total sense. Right. Yeah. So now you design your own t-shirts that people can buy, or if they're interested, you can do a design so they can go out and do their own shirts. Or maybe you actually have a fulfillment center and a print shop where now you do the graphic design and you do the printing and you do the fulfillment. Man, there's a ton of opportunities that you have just in those little things right there. Oh, and by the way, we are heavily involved in the nonprofit. So you make shirts for firefighters and police officers and military members. You do their graphic design stuff. You contribute, and anything that you sell maybe is a pitch to your potential clients that a percentage of that goes to this working dog, nonprofit that you have.
Yeah. Cool.
But I think you can consolidate, not consolidate. Yeah. Consolidate. I think you can bring this all in one house. And I think you'll be much more effective if you come up with some good branding and naming that will encapsulate everything that you're doing. And then you offer services. So if you want graphic design, good, got you covered. If you want us to print shirts and send it to you, got it covered. If you want me to design, print, and fulfill the shirts, great. We can do that too. If you're going to do it, man, you can run with it and take care of it all.
Okay, cool. So, if I had to grab something you said today, I think is profound to wrap up on, I think it's just a call to action. I mean, you said it yourself, Ryan, just a few minutes ago. What are you guys doing listening? What are you doing to move this movement forward, to restore masculinity? And you just hitting likes on Instagram and nonchalantly maybe sharing is probably not enough. I mean, let's be frank.
It's not.
There's a hell of a lot more. Yeah. Even me listening to what you're saying, I'm thinking I need to do more. And if I feel that way, there's a really high probability that all of you listening should be doing the same thing. And so I think,
Kip, let me say one thing on that. Actually, when you say do more, here's what I don't want people to hear. You don't need to do it all. Okay. So sometimes people will say, hey, Ryan, well, when are you going to run for office? And maybe I will in the future. It's not on my cards right now. I'm not interested, but that doesn't mean I'm not doing anything. I'm sitting behind this organization trying to drive and affect real change with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of men. And that's my path right now. And your path doesn't mean that you have to do everything, but if it means that you're going to coach your kids' baseball team this year, then that's awesome. Do that fully. Yeah. If it means you're going to run for city council or for the school board, then cool, do that. It doesn't mean you also need to become the governor of your state. But imagine when 1 million or more of us are all engaged in a meaningful and significant way, in our own way, covering it from all angles, how powerful that will be.
Yeah. I would love you guys to connect with Ryan on Twitter and Instagram at Ryan Mickler and do a post sharing what are you doing to have masculinity courage and to stand for masculinity, and tag Ryan and share and start banding with us.
Yeah, I agree. And cool. There's also one very simple thing that you guys can do on parting right now is, we want you to do those things. But another big way that I think a lot of guys overlook is just leaving us an iTunes rating and review. So we're doing a big giveaway right now. I don't know if you saw it, Kip, but on the 28th of this month, February, so in about a week, we're going to be giving away a signed copy of Sovereignty, an Origin heavy hoodie, an Origin brand new pair of Origin USA made boots, a Magna Cut stainless steel Speed Goat knife by Montana Knife Company, and a pair of 50-pound Sorinex center mass bells. So you will win all of that on this rating and review contest. And all you need to do is leave the rating and review, take a screenshot of it, and then email it to Brandy, BRANDY at orderofman.com, and you're entered. And we're doing the giveaway on February 28th, 2022. So good luck on that and get in those ratings and reviews.
Yeah. And the last call to action is Iron Council is going to be opening up for enrollment in March.
In
if
about a
you
week
want
too.
to be notified of that, connect on the socials, but also go to orderman.com/Iron Council and sign up for the newsletter as well to be notified of that.
Yep, that's right. All right, Kip, glad to have you back, man. Great conversation. Great questions today. Really appreciate that, guys. And let's keep going. We got a lot of work to do. We'll catch you on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.